calm and peace and order within the land. Another propaganda tool that was used was the creation of staged photos or staged videos that were released to the media to paint a picture that was different from the reality. The Nazis...
Right, I'm going to show you this as best I can with this stupid camera. And then we're going to see, aren't we? It's not like we don't know anyway. If we don't, we are pretty stupid. And a lot of us are. Or some of us just want to be stupid. People just don't want to admit what's going on. Why? That's stupidity. Amongst other things. But Zionists don't want to admit what they are. They really don't. All those governments here in the West that are supporting what's going on over in Gaza and over the West Bank and over the 75 years and what used to be the Holy Land, which is not anymore, obviously. Anybody calls that, you're a bloody idiot. So anyway, I'll show you this as best as I can, hopefully. Will be. Right, well,
let's talk about some of the propaganda methods that were effectively used by Nazi Germany. And of course, this is just for educational purposes, but if any of these sound familiar, you can let me know. One of the major cornerstones was the ideological concept of all ethnically German people returning to the homeland for their own safety and being united in a greater Germany. In the book Mein Kampf, the author pushed this idea of ethnic Germans being at risk of persecution if they were not living within Germany, particularly those Germans who were living in Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Austria. And he angled it from the point of view that all of this was for the protection of the homeland and the German people. When this particular propaganda campaign was launched, the media would publish stories about how German people were being persecuted and ethnically cleansed in Poland. And of course, this was used to justify the invasion of Poland, because the military were told that their actions of violence towards the Jewish people were simply to create calm and peace and order within the land. Another propaganda tool that was used was the creation of staged photos or staged videos that were released to the media to paint a picture that was different from the reality. The Nazis even went as far as creating a propaganda movie. And this was effective because the average person didn't have the means or the incentive to fact check or to doubt what they saw. Another method was the instilling of these core values or ideologies into the minds of the German people. For example, German nationalism, or the concept of a master race, or just evoking an irrational hatred towards the enemy. And this essentially led to the German people believing that they were innately superior and that they had to unite to protect their homeland, and that any violence toward their enemy was justified because it was for their own protection. In fact, they believed that their enemy was so subhuman and animalistic that they couldn't even be reasoned with, that no compromise would be found. And so they felt they had to use brutal, extreme force to suppress their enemy, lest they rise up and either attack the people or the land. So yeah, thank you for watching. And this is for educational purposes because, you know, if we forget things that happened, we're at risk of letting them repeat. Let's talk about some of the propaganda methods.
yeah, and they are repeating, of course. They've been shouting this out for ages about the Holocaust, long before any of this in Gaza happened. Long before any of this in Gaza happened. But nobody, you know, all these people that come onto the internet and shout out, I'm a socialist, you know, no, they're not actually. These people, they don't want to know things like this. They don't want to see. It's not like they don't see. They do. Everybody in the world sees what's going on. Of course they do. And everybody that was born in Israel was all taught all the same stuff all through the school years. And that's why they all hate the Palestinians, because they really believe that the Palestinians are out to murder them all. because that's what they've been schooled in school. And who set up that education system just before Benjamin Netanyahu's parents went over to Israel? London. It's all London born and fucking bred. Every last bit of it. That's what he was taught as well, by the way. He was the first one to get educated in London's brand spanking new education system over there in Israel. Yeah. He really believes what he says, and he really believes what the rest of his government say about the Palestinians. He really believes that. And so does a vast majority of Israelis. They all believe that. The exact same, the way that IDF operates over there, we can see what they're doing, that it's the same as what happened before over in Europe. There's nothing different about it. Not a thing. And you've got to laugh at it. I've got to laugh at this. The Zionists, the Zionist British government, they didn't want peace in Europe. They wanted a World War II. So we got one. We got a World War II. And they had all of our people in Britain fighting against the Germans, against Nazism and all the rest of it. All the time, them as Zionists were plotting and planning with the rest of the Zionists to create another Nazi state and call it a Jewish homeland. Is it any wonder that all the Jews said no in the first place? Going right away back to the beginning of the 20th century. Is it no wonder the actual real Jewish people all said no to Zionism too? Not one real Jews a Zionist today. Not one. None of them. And there are some real Jews still living over there, strangely enough. And they do get persecuted by the idea. And there are videos floating about around the internet circulating that will show you that. And yet, people believe what they want to believe. Ain't that the truth? Not what's actually true, but never mind. The exact same things occurring. If I suppose that there were, big powerful bombs and all that, then again, that's the thing. The Zionists are way back in those days. They made a hell of a lot of money. All these companies from all over the world all came in the heart of Germany to take part in the work programme. And they made a hell of a lot of profit off of that. Of course they did. Getting free workers. Not just Jews, but other people too. And they never fed them. They just worked them practically to death. Then they would get dragged away when they weren't fit to work anymore and taken to a death camp and executed, not by gassing. Either got shot in the head or they got hung. That was it. And then that obviously, that factory would get brand new workers and another set of brand new workers from what was called work camps in those days. People weren't working in those work camps in those days. Those work camps were there for a specifically good purpose at the time. People who were kidnapped from all around Europe were brought there. And that's what I said. No, it wasn't just Jews. The Israelis always come out with that. Oh, it was only Jews. It wasn't. It wasn't hell. People got stolen away from their own countries and their own towns and their own streets and all that, and dragged to work camps. Did they work there? No, that's a fallacy. No. They were looked after well in those work camps, but bear with me. The reason they were the whole point of those work camps was to make sure these people they stole, they all got health checked too, properly health checked, made sure they were fit and healthy, and they get fed for a period of time very well on the best of food. And the snag to that was they were going to get dragged away to a factory where they would never see food ever again, only water to keep them alive. And they would get thinner and thinner and weaker as they kept working. And there was big cages in those factories, by the way. There's footage somewhere here on YouTube by the Americans, the American soldiers that went over there. They had a camera guy with them, another American soldier. His job was to film everything. But unfortunately, they don't show you that footage that they shot, probably because it's too gruesome. But what they do, the guy tells you, the actual guy that he's dead now. They're all dead now. The actual guy that took the footage, he was the one that was telling us about it in this video that he made with a clockwork cine camera. I've got one of those cine cameras lying in the bedroom, by the way, and it's in pristine condition. It's like I just bought it yesterday. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, there is a video like that about somewhere here on YouTube, and you hear the American guy telling you that they found big cages in their own American Ford factory in the heart of Germany and in the General Motors factory. This is what he was talking about. But as he said, there was a lot of other factories from all different countries over there too, all doing the exact same thing. Man didn't hide the fact that his own country was involved in a work program involved in the Holocaust. And they must have made a killing. And the American government obviously did know that the Ford Motor Company was over there in General Motors. They knew. They knew. The British government also knew that Dutch British Royal Shell at the time was over there too. Also partly British, obviously, as you know that by the name, and partly Dutch. And they made a lot of money out of it too. The French had two companies over there while they were complaining about getting invaded by the Germans. They also made a lot of money out of it. There was tons of companies that made a lot of money out of it. And majority of those companies all still survive today, and we know them all. They're all very famous companies. And since we're on YouTube, I'm not going to mention any names. You can find them. They're free. It's free information on the internet. It's just a matter of looking about. You'll bump into it eventually. Big lists of factories of different names, but all these, there isn't one big, huge, massive list of every single company from every single country. It takes a while to suss it all out because they're all split up into small, little, tiny lists scattered over tons of different websites. But you've got to actually be wanting to find this stuff and actually researching it before you'll actually take the time to look for it like that. And that's the only way you're ever going to find out the truth about history, whether it be about Germans, World War II, Zionism, how it all began and everything else, to anything else that happened in history. There's a lot of things that happened in history, not just that. It's all been rewritten by Zionism. It suits them. That's the way they want it to be seen. Which is barking. Because that takes everybody away from the roots of their own roots, basically. And they don't want you to do that either. They don't want you to go right away back, so as far back as you can go in history itself. Not in your family history, but in history itself. Which is right away back to before I got as far back to when everybody in the Middle East were only goat herders. And there was no countries in the Middle East. That's how far back I got. And the Jews didn't call themselves Jews at the time either. There was no Judea, and there was no Galilee. There was no Bethlehem. Going that far back, but they were herding goats, and nobody owned any land either. They just herded their goats. And the only reason they started, and this is true by the way, they didn't start owning land out of money. The reason is they didn't have money. I'm going that far back where nobody had money, by the way. That far back, the Jews didn't even call themselves Jewish at the time. There was no Judea, there was no nothing like that. Just one big, huge landmass. That's all it was. And people's goat herds kept getting mixed up and getting confused, and it would cause problems that you can imagine because everybody was using this big, huge landmass, and all their goats were just like loose. They started building fences around them, around their herds, and that was that. Once the first person did that, right, that's my goats. But they still never thought that they'd just claimed that land. They didn't claim the land, that's the thing. They're only saying, I'm putting this big fence around my goats so that they can't escape and get mixed up with anybody else's. And it worked, so everybody else started doing it. And then through time, they got to a notion that, well, this is my land, this is my land. That I fenced off. This is my land now, I've just claimed this, for my goats. And that's how it all began. That's how all that began anyway, so far as land ownership and everything. Anywhere in the world, that was the very first place it did. It was the Middle East, not Africa. Middle East. Yeah. Before anything was anything over there. And nobody called themselves Jewish or Muslim. There was no Muslim faith. And obviously no Roman Catholics, because Jesus, this is going back hundreds of thousands of years before even Jesus was born. A long time. A very long time. So anyway, you can't get back that far. Your governments don't want you to do that, of course. Because once you get as far back as you go, then what you do in order to learn what was happening is start moving forward bit by bit until you get right up until, wherever you want to get. I got up to, after the 1940s, that was it. There was no point in bothering anymore. So, I got up to what the British government did after the war, 1946 to 1949. Yeah. The Nakba. That was the British government that caused that. And I don't know why not one Palestinian ever mentions that was the British government that caused that. All you have to do is look at it in history to find out what exactly happened. It wasn't nice. They proclaim they love Jews. No, they don't. They don't. They only love Zionists that proclaim to be Jews, and that's that. That's how it's always been. They can't love Jews because all Jews are still Arabs today. They've all got Arab ancestry, and that makes them Arabs. Zionists hate Arabs. They are Arab haters. They've always been Arab haters. They've never been anything else but Arab haters. But anyway, getting back to what's going on just now in Israel, everything that is going on in Israel happened in Germany. All the people in Germany believed, yeah. Oh, of course, they did have a right to their country because it was their country, right? But the Israelis, of course, believe they've got a right to their country. They don't have a fucking country. All they've got is Israel, which is a Zionist project. That's all it is. But they think that's their homeland, and they think that's their country, and they're entitled to keep everybody off it. and it's only for them. That's what they've been taught in school. You can't unteach them that. It's not possible. People on now and again on discussions I've heard talking about trying to unteach. You cannot unteach people things like that. If they've been taught things since they were like 5 years old upwards, you're never going to unteach them. You can't. It's impossible. It's a stupid idea that would never ever. You can't do that. It's not possible. But what's happening over in Israel just now is the same thing that was going on in Germany. There's nothing any different about it. Not a damn thing. Apart from, obviously, Zionists know perfectly well what they're doing. While the Zionist British government, of course, as I say, had all our people fighting against the Germans, the Nazis. They were plotting and planning with the rest of the Zionists over at meetings in Palestine. And they knew what their greater Israel is, just like the greater Germany. And the greater Germany took in all of the EU. Didn't take in Britain, of course, nor America for that matter, too far away anyway. But that was seen as a threat, and that's why they started building an atomic bomb. And then the Americans stole the idea off them and did it. And the Americans were the only ones that ever used it after the Japanese surrendered. Not before. After they surrendered, there was no need to use those two bombs on the Japanese, but the Americans did anyway. And that was the only reason the Germans started building an atomic weapon, to get rid of the threat to them, America. And that was it. They weren't going to use it anywhere else, just on America to get shot of it. But one wouldn't have done anyway. So, God knows what would have happened there. They'd have probably had to use more than one to get rid of something the size of America, the old atomic weapons. It depends, I don't know. Probably there would have been a difference in strength, a difference in yield between a German atomic bomb, if one was created, which it wasn't, against the Anglo-American British atomic weapon. Which one would have had a higher yield? In other words, more destructive power? That remains to be seen. I think the Germans would have probably maybe beaten the Americans on. I don't know. The Germans were pretty shitty when it came to bombing people anyway. The experts at it were the British, obviously. Fucking hell. But what's happening over in Palestine? What's been happening for 75 years is bad enough. And they have had terrible ways of treating the Palestinians over 75 years. Huge big gates, big metal gates and everything else. These people have had to, they've been hemmed into big giant pens over there. And these videos are online too. They're bound to be on YouTube. They can't not be on YouTube actually, somewhere. That shows you that. There's no difference. It's just the same. Don't matter what anybody's got to think about it or say about it or anything else. It doesn't change the fact that what's going on with Israel and the people of Palestine is the same. It's what went on over in Germany with the Jewish people. They all said no to Zionism. There's no difference. None at all. The IDF operated exactly the same way as the Nazis did with people, treating them like the way the IDF treat the Palestinians. Like dirt, like nothing. And if you think, I mean, maybe, you think I'm talking rubbish. Just think about this then. What do you think about Netanyahu saying, well, it's okay for the colonial settlers to set on fire Palestinian people once they drag them out of their houses, while IDF standing there guarding the colonial settlers, making sure that nothing happens to them, while they set on fire innocent Palestinians. And that's when up. There's more of that going on now since the bombing of Gaza started over the past couple of months. It's got worse over there. And in some cases, in a few cases, the IDF's actually helped. They've actually stepped in and helped colonial settlers drag people out of their homes, actually being involved in it, as opposed to just standing guard, watching that no harm comes to a colonial settler while they drag the people out of their homes and set them on fire. Setting them on fire alive, that is. Just like the way black people used to get treated over in America's deep south. No fucking different. That's another one that's similar. That. So there's two similarities. Nazi Germany, without a doubt, the way the IDF operate. The Ukrainians were doing that with the people in the Donbass regions years and years ago, and they were treating them like shit. And I've actually got footage of Ukrainians, the Azov battalion, which somebody from the Azov battalion actually shot on a farm in Ukraine. The name of the farm? I don't know. And they uploaded it. Where did they upload it? Twitter. And it was real, and it was that serious. That's why I stole them off of Twitter, because I thought to myself, this is going to get wiped. And there's so many half-wits in Britain that actually do support Ukraine. Don't know why. I mean, anybody's got a YouTube account that supports Ukraine. For fuck's sake. You must have seen all those documentaries by Sky, BBC, all these other documentary makers, Channel 4, CNBC, CNN, you name it, they've all done it, even the Australians, 16 Minutes. Yeah, they're neo-Nazi racists. They're not many different from the IDF, which is not much different from the Nazis in Germany in the first place. The way they all behave is all the same. The Ukrainians against the people of the Donbass regions, they weren't an army. They were ordinary civilians, similar to the Palestinians. Only difference where they weren't Semite people, obviously. They were Russians. And so far as the Azov battalion goes, nah, they want everything on that territory. All Ukraine, white Ukrainian and nothing else. This is why they wouldn't even let English people. There were English people on holiday over there when Ukraine got invaded by Russia. And this was on Sky News and it was on the BBC as well anyway at the time. All these little Ukraine flag wavers would like to brush that one under the carpet, wouldn't you? There were British people over there on holiday. The British women weren't allowed to go on the buses with the Ukrainian women and their children. Why? Because they're not Ukrainian, that's why. Nah. They were amongst the people that had to walk it from Ukraine to the Polish border. To the edge of Ukraine, that is the Polish border. And they were allowed in. But the black and brown students, and why this was happening in Ukraine, I don't know. Even though they don't like people that are not white, but they were allowing for some reason, I don't know why. You would think a regime like that wouldn't have black and brown people in their universities and colleges, but they did. They weren't allowed on buses, they had to walk too. And once they got to the Polish border, the Polish border guards wouldn't let any brown or black people in. And this was mentioned on Sky News for a whole 3 or 4 days. It was on Sky News for. The Sky News actually went to, I think it was Montenegro. They took them in, the black people. It was all men. And they actually went there to this big place all full of black men, and they were asking them about it, and they were saying that. And when they got to the border, they said, no, you're not getting in. Why? And they just came out and told them, the police, because you're black. They just told them straight to their face, because you're black. You're not letting you in. 6. They didn't beat about the bush. At least they were honest about it, I suppose. Yeah. So, and that's why you've got Polish people. Netanyahu, as I say, has been said anyway, is not Polish actually. He's of Polish descent. Yeah, Polish. If anybody says Netanyahu is Polish, no, he's not. He's of Polish descent. His parents were Polish Zionists. That doesn't make him Polish. He's of Polish descent. He wasn't born in Poland, so he's not a Pole. I don't know what he is. He's not Israeli because there's no such thing as Israel anyway. There never was. It was made up. So I don't know. I don't know what he is, but he was taught in that education system that London thought up and set up over there. Madness. So I wouldn't really turn around and say it's all the Israelis' faults that a lot of them hate the Palestinians. You only have to ask them. And you can ask them. I mean, we're all online. They do it all the time on TikTok. Just if you can't be asked, fair enough. Don't be then. But if you ask them, what were you taught in school? What did your school teach you? And nobody's ever asked them questions like that before. They only argue with them. But it would be useful if people that set up those live streams on TikTok actually ask the questions that need to be asked in public. Like, what were you taught in school? What did they tell you in primary school about the Palestinians? And they'll tell us. And I can guarantee you it was all hate they were taught. I guarantee you that. And anti-Semitism based. I mean, that whole education system over there is anti-Semitic, and that's why. Because it's always been teaching people that were born in Israel, for want of a better name for it, because there's no such thing as Israel. These people were taught, born in Israel, that were actually taught in these schools. All those teachers were all anti-Semites, man. You're no joking in a huge way. It's the Arab Semite people of Palestine. You cannot fuck with them and turn around and say, "Oh, I'm not an anti-Semite," because you are, and you cannot fuck with them either, and then start calling other people that's against you fucking with the Palestinians. You cannot turn around and call them anti-Semites either, because they don't like you fucking with the Palestinians. The only people in all of this that are Arab Semites are the Palestinians. You can't get nobody that is born in Israel today as a Semite person and not an Arab. That's a fact, but that's a truthful fact, because they all came from their ancestry all came from Europe, white Europe. Europe is white. It's not black Europe. It's white Europe. It's predominantly white Europe. And doesn't the whole world know it? Yeah. So there are none of them have got Arab ancestry. None of them are Semites in Israel, not one. And none of them can ever proclaim to be, apart from a very small amount of real Jewish people that still live over there that do get bullied and harassed and their heads kicked in from an idea from time to time, which most of us have seen the video footage here and there. But there's obviously a lot more video footage around. And everybody seems to ignore things like that. Ordinary people on whether it be on here, on YouTube or on Facebook or X, formerly known as Twitter, all seem to just, they see it and they don't say nothing about it. They don't say anything about it. It's like they're seeing it, they've seen it, they know what they've seen, and they know it to be true, but they don't want to talk about it. And this is why Israel gets away with everything, because no one wants to talk about it. That's why the Palestinians have got to a stage where they're actually getting bombed to help the kingdom come, basically. And the Israelis are getting away with that too, because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody. And that's shameful. That is very shameful to every single person. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. It wouldn't be that if his shoe was on the other foot. And it was all the Westerners from one country or another that was getting that done to them on their homeland. It was a different story then, wouldn't it? Yeah. Anyway, I'm out here.